Hi, I'm Salma Jett, Divisional Vice President of US and Global Marketing for Abbott's neuromodulation business. At Abbott, we are working across our company to support communities with resources and technologies to fight the evolving impact of COVID-19. Getting new molecular antigen and antibody tests and rapid tests into the hands of frontline workers so people can receive the critical results they need. As the COVID-19 global pandemic unfolded in the United States, New York City was the hotspot, and by April, hospitalizations were into the thousands each day. As hospitals in the city were reaching capacity, the call went out for volunteer physicians to contribute to the care of patients. One of these doctors who stepped up to the challenge is Dr. Nicolas Bremer. Dr. Bremer is a pain medicine specialist and anesthesiologist who recently practiced at the Spine and Nerve Centers of the Virginias in Charleston, West Virginia. He left his young family to head up to New York City. Dr. Bremer is no stranger to global disasters. As a commander in the US Navy, he was a naval flight surgeon that participated in the humanitarian effort in the wake of 2011's earthquake and tsunami in Japan. When the call went out in New York, he knew his experience would benefit the thousands of sick patients being admitted to New York City hospitals. Keith Bediger, president of Abbott's neuromodulation business, sat down with Dr. Bremer to discuss his experience.
I've just been impressed with some of you guys who kind of gave up your private practice and made the decision to go to New York City and work kind of in the middle of this whole thing. And I think that just takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of risk. You have a wife and a super young child at home right now, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of gave up a lot to go help a lot of people. So I thought I have 4 or 5 questions I thought we'd go through, but I really wanted to do this just because I'm impressed with you guys. I'm always impressed when people take risks or kind of do things that are kind of outside the norm. So I just thought I'd start with what drew you to go to New York City to kind of jump in the middle of the pandemic and kind of like the hot spot for the whole globe? I mean, I know you got a super successful practice in West Virginia, and I know you guys weren't seeing a lot of patients and doing a lot of procedures, but still, it's a big deal to leave your family to go to New York City and work with really sick people.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, I'm kind of the type of person that's always ran toward the action, toward the fight, and I saw things happening. And the other side of it is I had a great deal of experience with intensive care, or with critical care and residency. So I felt extremely comfortable in the intensive care unit. That sort of combined with my sort of willingness to put myself in sort of more uncomfortable situations. And then with my Navy background and with this thing called operational risk management, we're always taking risks in everything we do and trying to mitigate those risks over time. I don't know, it was, at the time anyway, it was literally a city in crisis. And I would talk to people here and kind of hear stories, and the skill set that I possess, partially due to my training in pain, actually, with using ultrasound and being able to put lines pretty much anywhere, and just general anesthesiology training was extremely in high demand. So it just I talked to my wife about it, and we sort of went back and forth, and then she eventually said, you just got to go, So that's how it kind of came about, really.
How has it all evolved since the day you got there? Because you got there kind of in the middle of it, right? And they kind of hit the top of the curve.
So I guess when I first got here, it was what I would call controlled chaos. At Bellevue, Bellevue Hospital Center is essentially the flagship hospital of the New York City HHC, Health and Hospital Corporation, public hospital system, which incorporates essentially 11 hospitals around the city, I believe. And each hospital, has an academic affiliation with some university in New York City, seemingly. So, so HHC was in really a tough spot, and I think Bellevue did an amazing job in terms of preparedness, whether it be physical plant, infrastructure, making ICU beds available, literally out of thin air, inventing ICU beds, new units, just expanding. So I got here, and it was kind of controlled chaos. Other hospitals were, maybe not doing quite as well, but at Bellevue it was a controlled chaos. And as I sort of integrated into the intensive care unit, so anesthesiologists were placed in all types of units. Most anesthesiologists were placed with the anesthesiology department. I was placed in the intensive care unit with the COVID MICU. So actually integrated into the teams, sort of over the course of a week, really became something called an up-trained attending, where I would be kind of in the role of an intensivist, and that has sort of grown over the past 6 weeks, where I sort of run my own teams and things like that. So people were placed in different roles, and so as time went on, the disease was really unknown. Like, we didn't really know what to expect. Was it going to be like a traditional ARDS type picture or not?
Mm-hmm.
And then we just learned the entire time. I mean, people would come in with otherwise standard medical problems, and we would ultimately find that they would be COVID. People would come in with heart failure, and we would find that would be COVID myocarditis. People would come in with renal failure, and we would find that would ultimately end up being due to COVID. People come with all types of problems and end up in the intensive care unit. And so many people would end up, their presentations were due to COVID. And it was really interesting to sort of be on the front lines of trying to figure out, like, what is this disease, and what is it doing, and what does it mean, and we were really making it up as we went along, and so to be in the center of that, really sort of infrastructure was really one of the highlights of my career, really. And I consider it to be a high privilege to be really trusted with the care of these patients, with a disease that was essentially unknown in the epicenter of the COVID crisis in the world. So really just a huge learning curve. And then as things progressed, we sort of understood the disease a little bit more. We understood what sort of needed to be done in terms of anticoagulation, in terms of treatment, in terms of outcomes. So I think we have a little bit of a better sort of handle on it now. I think the rest of the world probably would, do well to really, pick up on the New York City experience, because it's just been so instructive here. We have so many papers, pending that we want to publish, and we're still learning as we go. But just to be on the front lines of literally probably the most important emerging disease or special pathogen in the world has been just a tremendous privilege.
As time has passed since the earliest days of the pandemic and hospitalizations have begun to ease, Dr. Bremer reflects on some of the things he learned from his days on the front lines and what he can take forward with him in his practice from those experiences.
Well, what have you learned? Kind of what have you taken away? What would you apply back to practice when you went back? And you just seem like you've kind of, even though it's a difficult experience, seem like you've enjoyed it and it's humbled you, and it's been an overall, good experience for you.
Right. So in terms of, what I've learned, I mean, like, other than like the basic critical care type of, skills and learning, kind of, I've learned how to really, interrogate an emerging special pathogen. That's been just amazing. So I've learned systems-based practice in disaster medicine that in real life, that's something that you wouldn't even imagine, the complexities in terms of just, from everything from scheduling to manning to, making changes on the fly, to making teams, putting teams together. It's really just been like unbelievable experience in that way. What I've taken away is just really, I guess a couple things. One is how fragile life is, and but also how, resilient people can be after being essentially decimated by this disease. Families and patients, everyone still has hope. The healthcare workers still have hope. We still have hope that we can help people. The families still have hope that we can help people. They have so much faith in us, and we literally have no, or very minimal understanding of what we're doing even sometimes. So it's just been very humbling, as well as just in New York City, I can't walk down the street without someone saying, "There, essential worker, thank you so much. Thanks so much for what you're doing," or so hooting and hollering, cheering, and it makes you feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So just the grace, really just the grace of people for kind of understanding that we don't know what we're doing, but we're trying our best, and that they know that they are, and they know that we are, type of thing. In terms of what you can apply to practice, really, the teamwork elements of this are just not to be understated. If we were able to, kind of create a system that we can accommodate so many, patients with the most infectious, probably, virus in history. Sky's the limit what we can do in our private practices back home in terms of just teamwork, in terms of making our systems better. And as in terms of returning to practice, COVID is not going to last forever, we hope. I'm always going to be ready and willing to help with any one who wants any advice on kind of how to deal with it. But ultimately, so I'm an anesthesiologist. I'm trained in interventional pain specifically. Love that. Love helping people in that situation as well. But also would love helping people that suffer from COVID-19. So, my plans are to return to the practice of pain full time, and hopefully we don't have second waves and coming in, and we don't have mass shutdowns again, and because of this, and people are going to practice their going to wear their PPE, they're going to physical distance and do all the things that we need to do. But if it does come back, we need to be ready, and we need to have people that are willing to kind of raise their hand and step up, and I think we do. I think we have a good amount of people that are going to be willing to do that.
So when are you going back home? Do you know?
Not sure. We're sort of constantly reassessing every week, kind of the needs of just the different units and systems and all that. So that's kind of up in the air. I would like to return this month. That would be great.
All right, that's all I got. Look, I'm super impressed with you going up there and doing that. And it just seems like you're engaged. You've enjoyed your experience. You've learned a lot, and I'm impressed by what you've done and kind of how you think about it and kind of how it seems to have impacted you. So I'm glad. I'm thankful you've taken the time to talk to me, and then I'm thankful that you went up there to help a lot of people. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say.
So I will just say something that I think is important. Certain companies stepped up and certain companies didn't. I think the fact that Abbott, which I was surprised to hear the name Abbott, came up with a point of care test that would help with the ability to identify patients suffering from COVID-19 in the setting of a pandemic, literally within, I don't know how long it took, weeks or days, or it seemed to be like right away. It really just shows the dedication, and I'm just proud to be affiliated in some way with a company that is going to sort of take on that role, that kind of responsibility, kind of raise their hand and kind of make up a test that can help us. And I know that it did, because I heard that test being used. And so,
that was the rapid diagnostics group, but they spent, I don't know how many days they worked, but they worked 24/7, for a week or two to get that thing done. So there was a lot of a lot of work to get that done. And now just scaling it from a manufacturing standpoint to be able to provide the number of tests they need to provide. I mean, I think we've hired, or they're in the process of hiring 5,000 people and opening 2 manufacturing sites so they can, instead of manufacturing 50,000 tests a day, they can do millions of tests so we can test as many people as need to be tested. So yeah, it was an impressive feat. It was a really impressive feat by the corporation. So hey, I got one last question. So what do you miss the most about not being home?
Well, I miss the family. I miss baby girl, wife, and dog. You miss it all. I miss my house. Miss my bed. Miss my shower. I have a jacuzzi over there. Don't have that here. I miss the patients. I miss the staff I work with at all my different locations. St. Francis, CMC, Logan. Logan actually sent me a card, which was very sweet, and checks up on me from time to time. I don't know. I just sort of miss it all. It's sort of hard to be away, but I sort of view it as a military deployment where we're going to do we're going to do what we need to do regardless, and we're going to get through it. And at the end of it, we're going to be able to really sit back and kick back and reminisce about the good work we've done. So anyway, that's the hope.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be able to. Hey, look, if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. I mean, we'll do anything we can to help you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, dude, have a good night, and thanks for doing that.
Since that last interview, after spending 3 months at Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan, Dr. Bremer continued practicing critical care in COVID-19 intensive care units across the country, most recently in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the senior author on a publication studying an investigational agent with potential activity against COVID-19, which resulted in an FDA investigational new drug approval and a follow-on large, multi-center randomized controlled trial. He plans to continue his COVID-19 research and clinical critical care practice as future surges may require. But currently, he's looking forward to the possibility of returning to the practice of interventional pain medicine in November. Thank you for listening.